So this brings me to the issue of geopolitical risk and what is it? So it's defined by a risk associated with country-specific policies and decisions. So countries are making policies affecting the flow of material, the imports, the tariffs, the restrictions, the taxes, and so on. And we felt that these types of conflicts and interventions were increasing. And we also could see that all the companies that are subject to the jurisdiction of a specific country are going to be impacted by this. So you have companies, you're all involved with companies here, you make your own policies, you try to optimize your global supply chain, but you're all doing business in different countries. And in every country that you do business with, there are laws and there are incentives and there are rules, and those are the ways in which the countries are trying to impact the behavior of the companies. And it impacts all the companies that are operating in that country and all the ones that they interact with. It affects not just supply, but also demand. And the idea is that through policy changes, governments are trying to influence company decisions, like where you're going to manufacture from and where you're going to source from and so on. And there is also issues of national security and so on, and trade-off of those. So geopolitical risk is understood. We understand that it exists, and it's becoming more of a problem. We've also understood that supply chains have been subject to, or always been subject to risk, and this has been going on for quite some time. And so here is a summary based on another study that we did through interviews with some of the leading companies in the world, and to look at what are the strategies that companies adopt in order to deal with risk. And it should be no surprise that companies understand this. They understand what are the strategy options that are available to them. There's operational buffers, like more inventory, and diversification of sourcing. And, so you diversify your supply base, or you have a flexible product or process design, you have better distribution, you standardize products, you work with partners, and there are various enablers that we mentioned. So this is well understood. But the question is there something different about the way the geopolitical risk affects these decisions? Is it a different type of a risk, and is the response to it different? And ultimately, I'm going to say yes to those questions, and then I'm going to say the way to deal with it, one of the ways to deal with it, is through the adoption of methodologies based on machine learning. Okay, so that's where we're going. So how to modify traditional resilience strategies to account for geopolitical risk? Are these risks different, and how do we react to them? So the first thing that you have to understand is that it has to do with relationships between countries. If China invades Taiwan, that's an action of one country against another country. All the companies who do business in both of those countries can and will be affected, okay? You also have to understand that who's making these decisions. They're made by government policymakers. They're made by politicians. This is not what we normally think we should be aware of when we manage supply chains. And so in order to understand these risks, you have to invest in following these risks and understanding what's going on and have access to that information. Another aspect of this is cash flows. As I mentioned, the supply chain, which governs the flow of the physical goods, as we all understand, also creates the flow of cash, of value, of financial flows, through taxes, through transfer prices, through profit repatriation. There's foreign exchange risk exposure. So there are a lot of things that have to do with financial risk that is associated with the event when goods cross a border. Either it's imported or exported. Once physical goods start crossing borders and going from one country to another, then the financial flows are affected through those mechanisms. And the strategy options that we have to deal with have to be different. And that's basically where we're going with this, okay? And how decisions, risks, and outcomes interact. That's ultimately what we need to understand. We make decisions, we deal with the risks, we want to mitigate those risks, maybe we want to exploit those risks, and then we worry about the outcomes, the profit, the market share, the impact on the environment. There are many metrics that we use that have to do with outcomes that are, again, associated with supply chain decisions.